Chapter 8 examines budget making, the process for allocating the state's resources. More often than not, the state's political leaders are caught between pressure to spend more and the consequences they face for collecting the money to meet the state's needs. This chapter presents California's taxing and spending systems in their highly political context. We take a look at the budget environment, budgetary process, revenue sources, spending, and a general look at the budget. Unlike the federal government, California is required by the state constitution to have a balanced budget. That means California can't spend more money than it takes in any fiscal year, which also can mean some tough budget decisions in tough times. And there are some significant challenges that the state faces. Only in the past few years has California worked its way out of severe budget problems. Great Recession caused significant budget shortfalls and a number of rounds of budget cuts. Voters approved a ballot initiative that provides temporary tax increases of $8 billion annually for 7 years. And while the public often says government spends too much money, public opinion polling has shown that the public only supports cuts in two major public policy areas: prisons and parks. As we mentioned in the last chapter, the governor prepares the budget and frames it as it goes to the legislature. Governor's Director of Finance works with the head of state agencies to prepare the budget. Governor presents it to the legislature in January, and the legislature is given until June 15th to respond. Once the budget is submitted, legislative leaders turn it over to the legislative analyst for scrutiny. Key legislative committees also get involved in the process and hold hearings that include testimony from lobbyists, individual citizens, government officials, and interest groups. The public has played a critical role in shaping the state's budget through initiatives or referenda. The most significant initiative called for 40% of the state's general fund budget to go to K-12 education. The public also has rejected some initiatives, though, but voters also approved Prop 13 in 1978, which reduced property taxes and, in turn, made local governments more dependent on state government. Now let's take a look at where the state gets its money. Personal income is the largest source of the state's revenue, followed by sales tax. Here's a little closer look at sales tax. Today, the statewide sales tax is 7.5%. Cities and counties get to keep 2% to meet public safety needs. Cities and counties also can add a specific sales tax. For example, Fresno County has added an additional sales tax for the Chaffee Zoo. Personal income tax varies depending on income and is the fastest growing component of state revenue. It accounts for more than 60% of the state's revenue. Four major areas: public education, health and welfare, higher education, and prisons, account for 90% of the state's budget. And the budget is largely formula-driven, with money going for specific programs and projects. Let's take a look at budget issues related to higher education. As you know, there are three components to our higher education system, and support for those components has been inconsistent over the past several years. Fees have been raised throughout the higher education system, and enrollment also has been cut back. Health and Human Services accounts for the second largest share of the budget because of the state's large population of welfare recipients. Prison spending has grown significantly in recent years, in part because of the three strikes law we talked about earlier in the courts chapter. But under realignment in Prop 47, more inmates are being sent to county jails or are out under local supervision. So here's a review of where the state's money comes from and where it goes. Personal income tax, sales tax are the top two sources of revenue. Public education, health and human services, higher education, and corrections and rehabilitation are the top expenditures. That is your video lecture for this chapter. Please use this lecture as well as your study guide to prepare for your weekly quiz. Good luck.